UFC 309 Jon Jones vs. Stipe Miocic takes place this Saturday at Madison Square Garden, where we get to watch the two best heavyweights fight for the heavyweight championship of the world, okay? And of course, I am just kidding. It is not 2012. Either way, dude, I want to give a breakdown and a prediction for every single fight on this card. We are going to start with the first fight of the night and work our way up as usual. So let's get to that right away with that first fight of the night, which is Veronica Hardy versus Eduarda MOURA. Now, I will be going with Veronica Hardy here, okay? Eduarda, whatever. MOURA was undefeated when she got to the UFC. She's missed weight in both of her fights, and she lost to DINIZ Gomez, who I don't think is all that good. Whereas Veronica Hardy's been on a 3-fight win streak. She's looked pretty damn good as of late, so I'm going to trust in her to get this one done. Probably by decision. She doesn't get a whole lot of finishes, but, you know, either way. Let's move on to the next fight of the... You know what, dude? I'm going to be honest. This card is not very good. And I think it's funny because I don't think it's going to sell very well. Despite Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Legacy fight. I'll tell you what, dude. Either way. Basil HAFEZ versus Obon Elliott. Now, I'm going to be going with Obon Elliott here. Basil HAFEZ is pretty good, and he's looked decent in his 2 UFC performances. But I will point out, I think that he looked good against Jack Della Maddalena simply because JDM had to make weight, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 times in like a very short time span. He had his opponent fall out on him multiple times. It was a very short notice replacement. Like I said, had to make weight a couple times at least in a short time span. Whereas Basil HAFEZ didn't really have to deal with any of that. And if I'm being honest, that fight wasn't that close. It was 29-28, pretty clear for Jack Della Maddalena. But then we see him against Mickey Gall, and it was a slop fest. Okay, if I'm being honest, that was an absolute slop fest between Basil HAFEZ and Mickey Gall. And I think that Obon Elliott is actually quite good. Now, unfortunately, he's not much of a finisher. Got a lot of decision victories, but he looks good doing it. His debut against... God, I can't remember the guy's name now, but Val Wood something, you know who I'm talking about, dude. Listen, it's early, okay? Either way. And I'm having a hard time getting excited for this card. It's just, you know, it is what it is. But I think Obon Elliott should get the job done here. I think he's got a better gas tank. I think he's better, technically speaking, basically everywhere. And we kind of saw in that fight with Mickey Gall, Basil HAFEZ kind of gas a little bit. So I think that Obon Elliott should be able to eke out a decision here. Either way, moving up the card to, you know, speaking of, Mickey Gall versus Ramiz BRAHIMAJ. I'm going to go with Ramiz BRAHIMAJ. I want Mickey Gall to lose so that we can have a male that has a 500 record, a legitimate 500 record. You know, there's people that will poke fun at Nate Diaz or guys like this for having double-digit losses and all the rest of it. But when you've got a male who would be 7-7, and if he's still in the UFC after that, I mean, there's got to be something going on. You know, a lot of people think that Colby Covington's got some dirt on Dana White. I genuinely think that's either the case with Mickey Gall, or I think that the UFC staff forgot Mickey Gall existed. I think they signed him years ago to fight CM Punk or whatever, and they're just like, oh wait, every time he fights, they're probably like, oh what, that guy's still here? What? I forgot about him, dude. Because he's just not that good, man. He's just not that good, you know. But, and he also, people forget, dude. I swear to God, it was Mickey Gall bit Diego Sanchez. Maybe it was somebody else, but I swear to God it was Mickey Gall. Nobody gives him shit for it. That one dude got the boot, you know? So, it'd be funny to see a man in the UFC with a 7-7 record. So I'm hoping for Ramiz BRAHIMAJ to get it done. But in all seriousness, Mickey Gall's not looked great lately. And I mean, to be fair, he's never really looked all that good. He will have a reach advantage, it looks like, but still. Doesn't matter, dude. Moving on, okay? Marcin Tybura versus Jonathan DINIZ. I'm going to go with DINIZ here. DINIZ has never been submitted, and Tybura's been knocked out like 5 times. You know, I feel like we're finally starting to see the older generation of fighters slowly phase out, and I think heavyweight, we're going to notice a big change here. It's crazy that Marcin Tybura was considered at one point like a top 10 guy, and he might even still be ranked top 10, I don't know, but I don't think he's going to submit DINIZ, and he's not very good on the feet. And like I said, he's been knocked out a gang of times, so I don't, you know, I think if Jonathan DINIZ can just connect, he should be able to put him away. You know, it is what it is, dude. Listen, either way, let's move on. Jim Miller, nope, wait, what? This fight got canceled. That's why. Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. I'm going to be going with Damon Jackson here. I don't know. Jim Miller was looking pretty good up until his last fight against Bobby Green. But, you know, he was fighting Gabriel Benitez, very old and long in the tooth, and Jesse Butler, not really top-level competition. So I think they were kind of matchmaking him appropriately. And even a guy like Bobby Green is a pretty significant jump up in competition compared to those other guys. And look, I know Jim Miller's been around forever. He fought at UFC, what was it, 99 or some shit? And now he's here for 309 or 90, and now he's whatever. Either way, I think I'm gonna have to go with Damon Jackson. He's just been able to beat slightly better levels of competition recently, at least. You know, he looked better against Hernandez than Jim Miller did. Just guys like that who aren't really top level, but are still kind of kicking it just outside the top 15 type shit. But you know, Jim Miller's old, long in the tooth. Unfortunately had a bunch of his career taken because of Lyme disease or whatever, so it's, you know, it's unfortunate for him that he didn't really get to be at his best during his prime, but I think Damon Jackson should be able to get this one done. Now, maybe, dude, listen, Jim Miller is one of those guys, sometimes you think he's just going to be, that's it, and then he comes out and he looks fantastic and he's chopping leg kicks, which is something that I wished he would have kind of stuck to against Bobby Green. He got away from it a little bit. I guess it's easier said than done when your face is getting boxed off, but, you know, if he fights like that, he could get a victory here. I'm not saying Damon Jackson's just going to go roll him, you know, by any means. So either way, let's move on. Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. You know, I would love to see Chris Weidman get knocked out, if I'm being honest, especially after that Bruno Silva. I don't give a shit how old he is. I don't care how long he's been here. I don't care the people that he's fought or the resume he has or any of that. I want to see him get knocked out. And it'll be a small form of reparations for Bruno Silva, okay? He will not even acknowledge that that was a... It actually makes me furious. Sadly, I think Chris Weidman gets it done against Eric Anders. And, you know, maybe we'll see an eye poke. Who knows? You know. Fucking hell, dude. I don't know what to say about a lot of these fights either way. Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGhee. I'm going with Jonathan Martinez. Marcus McGhee has looked pretty good so far in the UFC, but the guys that he's beaten are not nearly the fighter Jonathan Martinez is, in my opinion. And it's not, you know, the guys that he's fought and beat aren't even the same level of guys that Jonathan Martinez has beaten. Martinez's win over Said Nurmagomedov, I think, is a really good win. Even the way he beat Adrian Yanez, and, you know, when you look at the fact that he was on a 6-fight win streak before he fought Jose Aldo, it's Jose fucking Aldo. You know, Marcus McGhee's beaten JP Buys. That guy's got no he's like Phil Hawes. You touch him and he goes down. He's also a very small bantamweight. Journey Newsom, who is not very good in my opinion. Bolanos, who looked sloppy as all get out last night. So, you know, Marcus McGhee's good, and he surprised me when he came to the UFC. I thought he was going to not be that great, considering the level of competition he'd faced, his age, and how inexperienced he was relative to a lot of the guys that come to the UFC. But I think that Jonathan Martinez should be able to get this one done here. I think Jonathan Martinez is pretty damn good. And at the very least, in his fight with Jose Aldo, he didn't do what Mario Bautista did. Okay, so let's move on. We're at the main card already. I'm ripping through this one. I'm not really trying to, but it's just there's not... I'm... We'll talk about it when we get to Jones. Mauricio RUFFY versus James LLONTOP. I'm going RUFFY here. Now, the odds are insane. Minus 750. I bet you he'll close bigger than that, too. He is very good, and he looked fantastic in his debut. Jamie Mullarkey's taken a ton of damage, though, recently. He's been knocked out a few times. Every fight he gets in, even when he manages to win, you know, he gets the shit beaten out of him, basically. The fight against John McDessie, I think, is a good example of that. That was like a robbery decision victory in favor of Jamie Mullarkey, but he got the shit beaten out of him in that fight. Still managed to get the win. So even when he's doing well, he's taking damage. But I don't know. Mauricio RUFFY, there's certain things you can see too, and I understand that level of competition does matter when we're taking a look at what technique they can actually deploy inside the cage and stuff like that. And maybe that's a bit of it, but James LLONTOP, I don't think is as good or as experienced as Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey's fought a lot of really good competition. James LLONTOP has not been able to win since getting to the UFC, and he's gotten two kind of completely different stylistic matchups, right? He got submitted in, I think, less than a minute in his debut, and then he went on to fight Vyacheslav Borchev or whatever, Slavaklaus, and he lost that fight as well. So he got to fight a striker, he got to fight a grappler, lost them both. Mauricio RUFFY, or Huffy, whatever, very good, technically speaking. He does have that one loss on his record. That was a good while ago, though, so I think he should be able to get the job done, though. I would not feel comfortable betting on this fight just because of the odds. It was like last night with Elisa Zaleski dos Santos. You know, I thought Elisa Zaleski dos Santos should be able to get the job done, but those odds were pretty wild. But then he went out there and he looked like a minus 800 or whatever it was, okay? Either way, moving on. This is, man, what the fuck is this fight doing on the main card of a pay-per-view? We need to, like, start a petition. If you, I swear, all of the women's fights should be put on the early prelims so people can show up after. What the fuck? Bro, if you think of the cost of a pay-per-view, and listen, I understand a lot of people are getting it at a discounted price, you could say, okay? But if you look at the cost of a pay-per-view in the United States of America, I'm pretty sure after taxes is about $80. In Canada, it's 75, so close to that, right? But $75 to us is like fucking 50 to you, so that's why. And then you break it down by 5 fights. Like you're trying to tell me I'm paying fucking $15 to watch Viviane Araujo versus Karine Silva on a pay-per-view? What the fuck is that? Honestly, dude. Honestly. Karine Silva, I don't know. I'll go with Karine Silva. Araujo is getting up there in age. She hasn't looked all that good recently. But you never know, dude. It's women's MMA. It's fucking a coin flip. Who knows? Why is this on here? This card sucks either way. I don't get it. I knew it was on there and I just forgot. And then I just got reminded. It's annoying to me. Even if we don't break it down evenly, 5 fights per pay-per-view, or, you know, and divide that by 80 or whatever. Let's say we're paying 40 for the main event, even though nobody fucking fight. We're basically paying $80 for these 2 fights. Okay, let's move on. I'll go Karine Silva. Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. I'm going to go Bo Nickal. Paul Craig is just, I don't know, not him anymore, dude. Not him. And I think that we, you know, Gerald Meerschaert getting submitted in the 3rd round of a fight against a guy that was hip tossing like a fucking, I don't even know, dude. Falling all over the self. He tried to hip toss Gerald Meerschaert and took himself down. So that's a bad omen for the last minute submitters in, you know, guys like Paul Craig. Also, I think that Bo Nickal's wrestling should just be good enough to establish a dominant position. And, you know, we kind of saw Brendan Allen against Paul Craig be able to completely and totally engage in grappling and not be bothered by any submissions or threat of or anything like that. And I think that Bo Nickal should be able to do that. Now, there is sometimes wrestlers have a bad habit of giving up their back. So maybe, you never know, Paul Craig could pull something like that out of his ass. Or I guess if Bo Nickal gets a little overzealous and he's still in Paul Craig's guard, maybe he gets triangled or something like that. But I feel like Bo Nickal should be able to get the job done. And also, if they're on the feet, I mean, neither of these guys are a very good striker. Bo Nickal whips up a head kick naked every time, and he slips usually. I don't know. But my money would be on Bo Nickal when it came to the striking. So I'll go Bo Nickal. Oh, either way. Moving on to Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Co-main event. I'm going Charles Oliveira again. I think this fight's going to be worse for Michael Chandler the second time than it was the first time. Charles Oliveira's been active. Charles Oliveira has been fighting the best guys in the division for a long time. That fight against Arman Tsarukyan was very, very close, and Arman Tsarukyan is going to be fighting for the title next. Michael Chandler has only beaten Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker, but the Dan Hooker win has aged well, but you got to keep in mind that, bro, what? Hold on. What was I saw? Dan Hooker, the win has aged well, but Dan Hooker at the time was coming off of a brutal war with Dustin Poirier, which he got the worst end of that meeting. So, taking a lot of damage, and I mean Dan Hooker always takes a lot of damage, but I think that if they were to fight today, now, I think Dan Hooker gets Michael Chandler done. Because again, like Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker's been active. Michael Chandler's not been. It's been a couple years now, hasn't it? Like, at least. And he was waiting out for Conor McGregor. Dude, people tried to tell him. It makes me laugh. Fucking dummy. This dude waited multiple years for a rematch with Charles Oliveira. No pay-per-view. No rematch clause, no nothing. Jesus Christ, dude. I think Charles Oliveira gets it done. Now, Michael Chandler is explosive. He is crazy. You know, he could always land something big or something. But, I don't know. I think that people, in that first fight, Michael Chandler definitely had him hurt. But I think that we forget that's like a strategy of Charles Oliveira, pardon me. He went on to do that in his next fucking 3 fights. Where he gets hurt and it's just like, let me recover for a second and go to the ground. And Michael Chandler was, he was tagging him with some good shit, but he's just too reckless, too wild, and I don't favor him on the feet. I don't favor him on the ground. Despite him being able to defend, Charles Oliveira had his back for a pretty significant period of time. He didn't get choked out, which is, I guess, a feather in his hat, because basically everybody else did. But, like I said, man, super inactive, and I understand that Michael Chandler's not the kind of guy that's going to get out of shape or anything like that, but you've not been in competition. And even before that, you lost to all of the good guys that you fought, or better guys that you fought, and the only 2 guys you've been able to beat in the last, like, 5 years are Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson. So, I think Charles Oliveira should get it done here. And I don't think I think he'll finish him. I think Charles might actually choke Michael Chandler. It is weird, actually, seeing that, just to think about it, that Charles Oliveira was not able to find a choke on Chandler, but Dustin Poirier was. You know. But I think we see Charles Oliveira, I think he drops him. Michael Chandler might even hurt Charles Oliveira at one point, but that's like you're activating his second phase of a boss fight. Like, if you knock down Charles Oliveira, he beats you, basically. Unless you're Islam Makhachev and you jump on it immediately and make sure to not let him back up. Dustin Poirier dropped him in the first round. He got strangled. Justin Gaethje dropped him. He got strangled. Who else? Michael Chandler dropped him. Got knocked out. So, if Chandler drops Chandler, or yep, true, he will do it too. If Chandler drops Charles Oliveira, he should jump on that shit immediately and try to finish. Otherwise, dude, you let him back up, that's a wrap for you, okay? That's a wrap. Let's move on, dude. I don't know, this is a very weird picks video, but hey, dude. What are you gonna do? Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Has Stipe Miocic always been listed at 6'5", or are they making shit up now? Okay. Jon Jones, I guess. I don't know, man. Here's the thing. I've been thinking about this fight a bit, even though it's... If Jon Jones does anything less than knock out or submit Stipe Miocic, get fucked, dude. That's not going to look very good. People are not happy. And his fans are some of the dumbest people on the fucking planet. I swear to God. Jon Jones's fans will say things like, Jon Jones wanting to fight Alex Pereira is just smart career decisions. Meanwhile, a lot of those same fans are ones that get mad at Alex Pereira for wanting to go up and fight Tom. Dude, you know what, dude? Alex Pereira wants to go up and fight Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones won't. I mean, it's... And people shit on him for it. Meanwhile, we've got Jon Jones waiting 2 years before he competes against a guy that has not fought in over almost 4 years. In March, it'll be 4 years, and he got fucking flatlined. He doesn't have a win in over 4 years against Daniel Cormier, who, listen, dude, is good, but retired that night. But the reason why I said if Jon Jones doesn't knock him out or submit him is because we've seen Daniel Cormier starch Stipe Miocic, and we've seen Francis Ngannou starch Stipe Miocic. And now Jon Jones is getting a Stipe Miocic that is 4 years removed from those knockouts. 5 years even in the case of Daniel Cormier. Maybe even a little, no, longer than that, dude, because DC made him wait a bit for the rematch. If you can't knock this dude out, man, or if you can't, which he won't be able to, Jon Jones is not going to knock him out. He might TKO him, but this is just bullshit. Why is this fight happening? His fans also keep saying this thing I see, and it's because they're just, whatever Jon Jones says, they're just parroting it. But legacy? What does this do for his legacy? We're not in, like I said, we're not in 2012, dude. Stipe Miocic, this does nothing for your legacy at this point, with all due respect. I like Stipe. He's got a fantastic resume for a generation ago. This does not do anything for your legacy. This is what people don't understand. Just because it's a name does not make it a legacy fight. That makes it a money fight. Jon Jones is just too, I don't know. Jon Jones is a guy that has a really hard time admitting his flaws. He just pretends he's perfect, but he's an absolute piece of shit. And when you have fucking idiots like Joe Rogan saying things like, Jon wants to be a good person, man. People forget, man. He's just a conqueror. I don't, what the fuck am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say about this fight? Who knows, dude? We've not seen either of them. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want me to say? Stipe Miocic has good wrestling. Kinda. Daniel Cormier was kind of able to pick him up and take him down when he wanted to. Daniel Cormier just decided he wanted to strike and he got knocked out. I don't understand this fight at all. What I was saying, though, it's not a legacy fight, it's a money fight. If Jon Jones wanted legacy, he would fight Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones saying he wants to fight Alex Pereira to cement his legacy is bullshit. So, and then those same fans get mad at Alex Pereira and say he's ducking Magomed Ankalaev. Literally the same group, the same content creator will say things like Tom Aspinall is way overrated, and you know it's his wins are fluky and shit like this, and you know whatever, and you know basically defend Jon Jones for this fight. Will also say that Alex Pereira is ducking Magomed. It's fucking crazy to me, dude. MMA fans are insane. Does anybody care about this fight? Maybe for nostalgia purposes. Here's the other thing too, dude. This is people need to come to grips with this. Jon Jones fans more specifically. Jon Jones is such a shit star for the UFC that if he doesn't have this fucking paper belt on his shoulder, he can't sell a pay-per-view to save his fucking life, dude. That's the real shit. That's real. The UFC knows this too. Otherwise they would have stripped him. Because you know what? They stripped Conor McGregor after a year of inactivity. So that so they could not do an interim title, so that they could do just a vacant title fight. Because they knew, well, fuck it, dude. When he comes back, it doesn't matter anyways, does it? He doesn't need a pay-per-view. They let Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal headline a pay-per-view for a fake belt. Literally a made-up belt. Because at the time, they were both organic, genuine stars. To an extent. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, the same. Neither of them are a champion. But they went, we'll have them headline a pay-per-view. You know why, dude? Because people actually want to watch them fight. Jon Jones wasted his prime being a piece of shit, getting stripped 3 times, testing positive for steroids every single fight after 2015. Ever since USADA showed up. That now, this whole new group of fans, this whole new like cohort of fans, that showed up during COVID have no idea who the fuck this guy is. They've seen him fight one time, and it lasted him 2 minutes against a dude that wasn't the champion. So the UFC's like, we need that belt on him. We need that belt on him. Because otherwise, he's nobody to us, and unfortunately, he's probably locked into a very lucrative contract. So I hope this pay-per-view tanks. I hope it tanks. I hope we find out that Jon Jones sells about as many pay-per-views as Francis Ngannou. I think that would be hilarious. And I think Jon Jones probably should win. This is literally, I don't care. And also, it's hard because, like I said, we've not seen Stipe in almost 4 years, and we've not seen Jon in 2. And we didn't get to see a whole lot out of Jon anyways against Ciryl Gane, because Ciryl Gane shit the bed so hard. Ciryl Gane, we didn't get to see Jon striking, which is not... Jon striking is not necessarily his strong suit. But we didn't get to see him really land any, like, significant shots. We saw Ciryl Gane overextend on a left hand, Jon Jones tie up with him, drag him to the mat, and just submit him. So, you know, who knows, dude? Who knows? If I'm being honest, this fight, take the belt away, is like, fucking... You know what? No, don't take the belt away. How mad do you think people would be if Islam Makhachev wanted to fight BJ Penn? How mad do you think people would be? Because people still bring this up to try to defend Jones, which is just, it doesn't work. George St. Pierre vacated the belt when he didn't want to fight Rob. So he did duck Robert Whittaker. I'll say that with a Canadian flag behind me. He ducked Robert Whittaker. The difference is he allowed the division to move on. He went, I'm not going to hold on to this belt. I'm not going to make them fight for an interim title. If I know that I don't have any intentions of fighting that man, I'll let him do his thing. Which is what George St. Pierre did. Now, if George St. Pierre, instead of doing that at the time, tried to call out a long-done Anderson Silva rather than fighting Robert Whittaker, how fucking mad do you think people would have been? You know? It's great. I'm surprised Jon Jones has not called out Josh Barnett yet, okay? Or Tim Sylvia. Or maybe, for Jon Jones's legacy, he'll call out Andrei Arlovsky after this one. So, listen, dude. I don't know what else to say. That's it. This has been a very odd picks video. I'm feeling, this card, the thing is, and let me know if I'm off base here, but I don't feel excited for this one, even the same way that I've felt for some other shitty pay-per-view cards that we've had this year. So, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one. Not just this fight, but I mean, this pay-per-view in total's not very good at all. And I mean, look, dude, I'm excited for it. It can't be worse than the Canada Fight Night card. So that's a positive, I guess. And then we can just, you know, get past it. And if I'm being honest, dude, I think the best outcome for the UFC is for both these men to retire. So I've got 2 outcomes that I want, and for different reasons. One outcome is Stipe Miocic knocks out Jon Jones. That's one. Because I think it would be fucking hysterical if Jon Jones, instead of fighting Tom Aspinall, opted out to fight a 40-whatever-year-old Stipe coming off of a brutal KO loss. And then that would just be like the ultimate karmic justice. Or, but that's the personal outcome that I want. I think the best outcome that I want is, or the best outcome, not that I want, but for fans, is for Jon Jones to win and just leave. I think that's the best outcome. Because you know what, dude? If Stipe wins, what do you think the chances are we get a rematch? Could you imagine? What, do we have to wait another fucking 2 years for these guys to fight again? That would be, I mean, I don't even know. I don't want to know. So, that's it, dude. That's it. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Jon Jones, by decision. Like and subscribe, dude. See you at the next video. Bye-bye.